Okay. I'm trying to figure out a new thing. So it said that my audio was removed. Can you hear me? If you can't, please let me know. I don't know how to double check. I'll ask the hubby. Let's see. I'm texting my husband in the next room. Okay. Oh, good, good. We've got somebody who can hear me. Yay! So this may be just like craziness by the time this is all said and done because I have no idea what I'm doing. So let's just leave it at that. Somebody answered that they can hear me, so I'm good.
I don't know how to pull up your channel, so
on the computer where you watch YouTube all the time.
but, okay. You have to come do it.
No, I'm not going to because I'm live. So either pull it up on the TV or on your computer or don't. It's okay. I got somebody to answer me, so we're doing good. Thank you. Anyway. I was trying to get hubby to help. Okay, so I have seen a few preachers lately online on different platforms talking about how Halloween is not evil and it originates with All Saints Day and All Hallows Eve. And I beg to differ. So that's what I wanted to go into is kind of the history. And then I had a couple of other suggestions. So I've got like a whole list of things to go through. And they said, hi, husband. He's, I set this back to cover up my junk behind me. And then I didn't do it. I've got sewing stuff all piled up, and I knocked something. Oh, my little tin crown. Because whenever I do that green screen background, like totally, it just makes things look weird. It just really makes things look real weird. So I thought I'm tired of doing the green screen background, but I know you guys don't want to see all my unfinished projects in the background. So I put a curtain up. Anyway, so we're going to go out. Yeah, a couple of things. One of the first things that I ran into that I thought was interesting. In order to come up with the titles for these videos, I have been checking with the AI thing to see, hey, what do you think the title should be with this topic? You know, and I don't know if it's doing a good job or not. It can't do any worse than me because I'm not good at that kind of stuff. I can write pages and pages and pages. But when you ask me to do a short subscription or a short description or a title or a tweet, I have a terrible time trying to keep things short. So I've been checking out the AI. I have trained it. You can tell it what you want it to call you. So I have it trained to call me Princess Donita. I figure if the AI is going to be addressing me in any way, shape, or form, it should address me as royalty. So, oh, hi, Pat, handing out gospel pamphlets to the children with candy. I love that. Our oldest daughter lives in town. We live far enough out of town that nobody wants to come out here. And that was disappointing to me the first few years that we lived here. But now I'm good with it because then I don't have to worry about it. If somebody came, we would dig up something for them. We would. Whether I agree with the holiday or not, it's not the children's fault, right? So our daughter, that's what she does. They go ahead and they dress up as something cute. And there's some local little ladies in their community that like to see the grandbaby. So she goes ahead and does do that, and she hands out tracts too with the candy for the children. So yeah, I'm all for that. If you're in town and you want to deal with that, then there's some really neat gospel tracts out there that are a lot of fun and very informative. And I remember getting those whenever I was little, and I loved them. Of course, I'm a nerd, so I'm a little different. Chocolate and a gospel tract would make me very happy. So hopefully there's some children today who appreciate you doing that for them. One of the things that I ran into whenever I was doing the research for this video was the word mystique. And the AI came up with this word somewhere in something. And I'm like, I hadn't really thought about that word. What does it mean? And I thought it was interesting what popped up. A fascinating aura of mystery, awe, and power surrounding someone or something. Similar to charisma, glamour, romance, mystery, fascination, and then it does put in magic, spell, charm, appeal, allure, awe. So it's not all like magic based. Some of it is, just kind of interesting, mysterious, right? An air of secrecy surrounding a particular activity or subject that makes it impressive or baffling to those without specialized knowledge. And I think that could be kind of what we find this time of the year with what is happening. What did they start in like June or July putting Halloween decorations and stuff out? It seems like it. And of course, they've already got Christmas decorations out, right? So you've got stuff in the stores, just definitely, really, really marketing on those holidays, right? I'm trying to look at the comments too. This is kind of fun. I like it that you guys can talk to me. Oh yeah, anytime we can talk about the gospel, that is, and this is a great time for it. I absolutely agree. Oh, I love that. Hello, Rain Girl, and then Samantha Marie. Hello. Like the curtain, it feels personal. Well, it's better than the junk in the background, right? Oh, let's see. So what I was really looking at is I'm like, when these preachers are talking about Halloween not being a pagan holiday and having to do with All Saints Day and all, guys, you're not going back far enough. That's like people, to me, that's like people saying that Babylonian texts or Egyptian hieroglyphics are older than Christianity. Well, Christianity maybe, but they're not older than the Bible. They may be older than the oldest known text, but the Bible goes all the way back to creation, right? The Bible it doesn't have a time. It's outside of time. The word of God is outside of time. So the idea that there are things that are older than the Bible, I have a problem with. But at the same time, Christianity and all of the little nuances that can go into the different denominations and stuff, that stuff is fairly new. So, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate between that, right? You saw the stuff out in August. Yeah. I could have swore I was seeing it out around my birthday. My birthday's in July. And I just thought it's just crazy how they're marketing things earlier and earlier and earlier. And I mean, I like to plan for holidays. Don't get me wrong. I like to have all my holiday stuff done well in advance if possible. And birthday shopping, I like to get that done early. Not that we do a whole lot. We're not really materialistic out here. And my husband is all for just getting things whenever he sees a need or he sees somebody wants something and he has the means. He likes to spoil us with things, not in like a bad way, but if somebody needs a new pair of boots and he's got the money to get a new pair of boots, then he wants to do that, right? And allergies have just been really great here lately. So, okay. So where this brought me was Sam. No, not Sam. It looks like Samhain. It's Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain, and that's where you get the Halloween thing. Halloween. It's Samhain. So I definitely do not have a Gaelic tongue. I didn't inherit that part of the Irish Celtic thing. I'm very Oklahoman, guys. So Samhain is considered like a gateway to the other world, which it's just like a whole thing of its own. Let me see if I can open up a couple of tabs here. I didn't want to have too many tabs like opened up before and have it taking up precious space on the computer. And my computer's been acting really weird. So it's like whenever I click something, it like double and triple clicks it. And then it's odd. Let's see. Okay, you would think that maybe I know a little bit about what I'm doing because I did a test live stream on Facebook earlier today. Thankfully, nobody came. It's like it kind of would have been nice to have the feedback on a few things because I know I was just really, really doing a number. But people, Facebook's so weird. They'll show the thing. They'll show it to people like 10 years from now, more likely. And okay, I'm just gonna share the entire screen because I don't know what I'm doing. So here we've got the History Channel had a thing on Samhain. It's going to take me a while to get used to that. And yeah, this is where they told me how to pronounce it. Pagan religious festival originating from ancient Celtic spiritual tradition. And I don't know if it's Celtic or Celtic, so forgive me on that too. Like I said, Oklahoma tongue, yeah. So it's celebrated October 31st to November 1st, which is how the Catholic Church does their All Hallows Eve is October 31st. Is November 1st. So that's how they do it, right? It's to usher in the dark half of the year. And they believe, okay, and I believe that ancient people were not stupid. And I don't believe in cavemen. And I just kind of lay it out here. I believe that people were probably a lot smarter than what we are today because they were closer to Adam and Eve and the perfect, and as we've gone further, we've degraded, not not evolved, we've devolved, right? So the celebrants believe that the barrier between the physical world and the spiritual world break down during this time. And that's where the veil is thin, and when Jesus, Yeshua, died on the cross, the veil in the temple was rent from top to bottom. Like somebody took that curtain and just ripped it from top to bottom, right? And this is one of those times that it's thin in between. And I don't doubt that at all. Having been raised in the New Age and grown up around spiritualistic type things with mediums, seances, all those things, I totally believe that this could be a time that does that. They've got their little video there, which I'm not really interested in seeing, guys. The country is beautiful, but the Druid priests light a community fire. That would have probably been a bonfire. Yeah, and we could go into, they actually have some pretty interesting information here on the History Channel. We've never had like television. So when we go to stay at like a hotel or something, that's usually what I turn on, is either the History Channel or the Sci-Fi Channel. If the Sci-Fi Channel has on something clean, then I might watch, the old reruns of Star Trek or something. Otherwise, it's probably the History Channel that I'm going to watch. Let's see. I don't know why I pulled that up there. This was another one. This was Brown University. And they're out of Providence, Rhode Island. And they've got some information here too. Not a whole lot, actually. I don't know why I bookmarked that one. And then New Grange had theirs. And I like some of the pictures because they're showing like, I think this would be maybe a fairy circle or something. And they've got their mounds and their circles. And we have these in America too. We just don't tend to recognize them for what they are. So this even talks about the Hindus. So that's even interesting. It marks the Hindu New Year. And this was, Samhain was the Celtic New Year, which almost kind of makes sense. If you have my book, Star Chronicles, a Bible-based study of the stars, it's a study of the constellations, not the zodiac, okay? But the Jews, as in Jews, not the Hebrews of old, but the modern day Jews, they celebrate the New Year as the Feast of Trumpets is the New Year, and they have several traditions based on that. And that would have been, it's the Virgo is the constellation that's in the sky, and it's the Virgin, and we've got the Virgin birth. And you may have seen some things about how the stars align and stuff, and how in the book of Revelation, whenever it's talking about the woman with the sun at her feet and the stars in her hair or whatever, I should have probably pulled it up, that is actually talking about the constellations in the sky and where these constellations and the stars are at this particular time. And yeah, I think that's talking about when he was born. Okay. So we've got Virgo and then Libra, and then which is October, and then it goes into Scorpio. So with the Virgin and the Virgin birth, I don't understand kind of starting it at the end of October. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but they did that, and there's probably, some amazing reason for that. let's see. Oh, Wikipedia. That was the other one that I was going to pull up. They've got some of the same things. I did find, it was interesting. I did find that they put these antlers in their hair. There is a story about a god. Well, she wasn't, I don't think she was actually a goddess to begin with. But I'm wondering if this was either one of the wives of the Watchers or something. But she was punished for running away from one of the gods and not wanting to, be his partner. And she ran away with this, and ended up with this Scottish man. This god was upset because she rebuffed his affections, and so he turned her into a deer. And the Scottish lord was out hunting with his enchanted cousin dogs. It's kind of a weird story. And the dogs laid down beside her to protect her. And he knew that there was something special about her. And when she walked into his tent, she followed him home. And when she walked into his tent, she turned back into a woman. And so anyway, I think that's part of the antlers and why they do the antlers in their head. Not that that's anything, that you're super interested in, but I just thought it was pretty interesting. Here's a calendar. That's interesting. I haven't gone completely into this. Now, what does that look like? And the name of this is Elon, the hero Fionn. Oh, that was the guy, actually. Yeah. Fighting Aelin, who must have been the one that turned her, maybe. So anyway, it was about this hero. Was this hero, just a man who was against the Watchers taking women? Or if he was a hero, was he one of the Nephilim? It's hard to say. But I think these stories, I definitely don't. I mean, you guys should know me well enough by now to know that I don't believe that they're just myths and legends, right? I definitely believe that they are based in some kind of reality pre-flood or something. I'm glad you're getting a kick out of me. Yes. This time of the year and the thinning of the veil, that's just kind of how I explain it. Because when Jesus died on the cross and the veil was rent in the temple, then also the graves broke up and people rose from the grave, right? And I think that's just kind of it's a good picture of that. And there are times that it seems like the veil is really thin. That if you are aware, if you are one of those people that God has blessed with an awareness, or if you're one of those people that suffered abuse as a child, then you may be more sensitive to those things, because abuse opens you up to the spiritual realm in a different way. But sometimes God opens people up to the spiritual realm as well, so that they're more sensitive. And I think a lot of people leave the church, and especially like in the 70s, early 80s, 60s, a lot of people left the church because they were born more aware of what was going on around them, but they didn't know how to assimilate that with everyday life. And the church didn't help, because the church wasn't, explaining the weird stuff. Like Dr. Michael Heiser said, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important. And I love that he said that and that he talked about those things. Some of the rituals and traditions I have an incredibly hard time with. And you'll notice that there are countries around the world, people around the world that celebrate times like this The Day of the Dead, I can't remember what day that is, that Mexico does. There's just different. And they're, it's like honoring our ancestors, right? That's what they usually say. Oh, well, we're honoring our ancestors. We're honoring the saints. We're, whatever it is. And I think we need to be really careful about that type of thing. Genesis 15:15 says, "And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age." So going to your fathers in peace, going to, be laid down to rest with your ancestors, that's in the Bible. That's a good thing, right? In Genesis 49:29, Isaac charged them, I think it was Isaac, no, Joseph charged them and said to them, "I am to be gathered unto my people and bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephraim the Hittite." So he was saying, whenever you guys get to leave the land, take my body with you and bury it with my dad. So that's in the Bible. God didn't say that was bad. So that's not a bad thing. So if somebody passes away somewhere else in another country or something, and they want their body brought back home and laid to rest, at home, that's biblical. That's okay, right? And then in Exodus 34:7, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and fourth generation. So this one, it's saying, hey, I'm going to forgive iniquity, and I'm going to forgive you of these things. I'm going to give mercy on these things. But whenever you have something, it's whenever you turn against me, that is going to be passed on in a generational curse down to your children's children, to the third and fourth generation. So we need to be careful that we're looking at the things that have been happening for the last several generations. Need to be looking and see if my guests, I may have some guests popping in here and there, and like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. But we need to be careful, and we need to look at those past generations. I think it is good to look at what were our parents dealing with, what were the struggles that they have, and talk to them if you can, and talk to your grandparents and talk to your great grandparents about some of the struggles that they had, if you have that ability to do that, and go back and look, read their letters, read their diaries, if you have a chance to do that, and find out and look at that stuff. And then you can pray over those things for yourself and your children and grandchildren, right? You can say, hey, Lord, help us to break this generational curse, whether it be, addiction or whatever. Nearly everything's addiction, isn't it? We're either addicted to food or something. It seems like nearly everything turns into an addiction. But, and we've got like familiar spirits that follow our families along. That's how mediums and stuff like that know what they know about you. So if they're reading your palm or looking in the crystal ball or whatever, that's how they can actually know things about you and your family and your loved ones, is because there are familiar spirits that follow you around. And, I pray a bubble of protection around us, not just a hedge, Job had a hedge of protection around here and around him. And I'm like, well, I don't want just a hedge, because something can climb over that hedge or dig underneath that hedge. I want a bubble. I want a whole bubble all the way around me. So we do that. We pray bubbles of protection. But just because we have that bubble of protection around us doesn't mean that those spirits, those familiar spirits that are familiar with us and our family, can't follow us around still. I don't allow them on our property. And I keep praying that, keep reinforcing that they're not allowed on our property. And we've got people who are uncomfortable coming onto our property, and they will either stop out on the road, it's an old dirt road, and they'll stop and talk to us out on the road. Or if they drive in and they've got like a teenager that's not right with the Lord, that teenager will get out of that vehicle and go right back out to the road. And my children know what's going on. So they understand. So they'll go out to the road and they'll stand on the property line and talk to that teen and visit with them. Looks like I'm refreshing. And because we still want to be polite, right? And we want to be welcoming, and we want to show them that Christians aren't those judgmental people, right? That we really love them and care about them. So, but just because they're not allowed on the property doesn't mean that there aren't spirits lined up outside of our property line watching what's going on, right? And I'm sure that there's probably angels from the Lord that are also making sure that they stay in their place too, right? So it's a whole thing. And we need to be careful that we are, keep praying over that. I've been doing a Bible study on Facebook lately, that a women's Bible study with some other women that's been really good. And we've been going through the armor of the Lord. And it doesn't matter how many times I read through that, something new pops out at me every single time. And I think we just need to keep revealing, keep asking him to reveal himself to us with those words. You just can't get bored with the Bible. And not if you have a relationship with him and you just keep reading it. You don't have to understand it the first time, right? I mean, there's so much in there I still don't understand. It's like, Lord, what are you doing? But we need to just keep trying. And the more you read, the more you'll understand. And he'll reveal just little gems to you here and there, and just kind of, help you out. Because if we really have got our heart in there that we really want to, he's going to be faithful with us, and he's going to, share things with us. So let's see what else. If you guys have a question, like, put it all in caps. I'll try to watch here. But okay, let's see some other things that they have. They've got their magic cauldron. And this is where that cauldron that the witches are stirring. There's a couple of different things. I can't remember where the broom comes from. It comes from something specific. The hat was actually like a pointed hat. That was one of the things that one country made the Jews wear. So throughout history, the yellow badge with the star on it hasn't been the only thing that the Jews had to do to point themselves out to people so that everybody knew who they were. There's been something different throughout the ages, and different countries would do different things. Sometimes the women had to have like a certain veil with the blue stripes on it. And at some point in time, the pointed hat was one of those things. So the witches with the green skin, the big nose, and the pointed hat, that was actually something that the Victorians in their artwork were making fun of the Jews and saying that the Jews were witches. At least that's how I understood it. But the cauldron actually goes back to the Druids. And it was a thing for the dead. Let's see. Got another. All right. Yeah, and let's see. Here's some good stuff, because people like to, whenever you're talking about Druid stuff, Vikings, um, Celtic things, a lot of times you'll see the tattoos and various things like that. Leviticus 19:28, you shall not make any cuttings on your flesh, in your flesh. It says in your flesh specifically in this one. This is King James. For the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh. I mean, that's specifically. That's specific. And if you've got tattoos, no judgment here on my end. My mom had tattoos. I had a lot of people in my family that had tattoos. But we need to go back to the Bible. And there's always been things. I've had a lot of things in my life that I've had to grow up on and realize, oh, that's not something that the Lord likes. I was raised on pork. But I don't eat pork now. And because the Bible says not to. And I just figure he's got a good reason for that. He had a good reason back in the Old Testament. So why would I want to do it today? It's easy enough to avoid. And I feel better when I don't eat it. So that's where I'm at. But I'm not judging people who still eat pork. It's a personal conviction. That's what I'm doing. So that's what I'm saying here, because I know some people can get really defensive whenever it comes to their tattoos and their bacon and stuff like that. So no judgment here. I'm just reading the Word of God, and you can go and you can read it for yourself. And if you decide that doesn't fit you at the moment, then, that's between you and him. Leviticus 21:1 says, and the Lord said unto Moses, speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, there shall none be defiled for the dead among his people. So there was something specific that people would do to defile themselves for the dead, right? And I know if they had somebody in their family that died, and I think this needs to be said too. A lot of the stuff in the Old Testament, people will say, well, that's in the Old Testament, that's done away with, Jesus fulfilled that, blah, 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 blah. It was there for a reason, okay? It wasn't there just to make their lives miserable. It was there for a reason. So there were times that people were considered unclean, but unclean doesn't necessarily mean the same today as what it meant then, okay? We've got a whole translation issue plus thousands of years of time. Right? So, well, I'm glad you don't. Wondering if that marks you in an evil way. I don't know that it does. David Carrico over with FOGC Radio and Now You See TV, he's talked about it a little bit. And John with Now You See TV has a lot of tattoos. But David has talked about how the ink, the people who make the ink, the companies who make the ink are owned by the Schmeishmations. You know who I'm talking about. So that makes me think that it's probably not a good thing. The ink actually goes into your skin. It's not something that's just going on top. That whole process is kind of an interesting thing. What I see, and this is just my personal thought process, okay, is when you get a tattoo, you are paying somebody to do ritualistic abuse on you. Whether you realize it or not, whether you understand what's going on or not, is that you are basically paying somebody, and whether they understand what they're doing or not. I have no doubt a lot of the artists that do that stuff have no idea. Some of them are really nice guys. I've met them. I've been into the tattoo places. Some of them are really nice guys. I have not been into one tattoo place that did not have some evil images in the place. If not just walking in and it is surrounded by evil. They've got succubuses, notoriously. They've got skulls. There's just it's just surrounded by imagery that is just inviting all of that evil in. And I know that I've got friends that have tattoos with pretty crosses or a rose and really pretty things. Um, and it just, my mom had Snoopy on her arm. Okay, there's nothing evil about Snoopy. I don't believe so. He's just a beagle, and he's a sweet puppy, right? Um, Whether or not she should have done that, it was in the 70s and she did what she did, right? Um, but that's just kind of my thought process. And I think it's something to, even if you do have them, it's something to think about now before you get any more, definitely. Um, so yeah, some of these Bible verses are just very, very eye-opening because I never thought about it. I was, like I said, I was raised around that stuff, right? So I always assumed once I got older, I would get a tattoo because everybody else in my family had a tattoo. So I figured I would get one. Everybody else in my family smoked cigarettes. So of course I smoked cigarettes. Everybody drank. It's just something that I wasn't being raised in the word. So I didn't know what it said and I didn't know what I needed to do to make God happy and therefore be happy myself. So I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. And I've heard a lot of wonderful testimonies lately from witches who have found the Lord. And I just can so relate with what they've gone through because they are seeking. They are seeking and they're seeking peace and joy and all of these things that once you have the Holy Spirit in your life, that it's like those things just kind of come over you, right? And it's like there aren't things that we can go out and we can grab and we can hold and we can, gather up for ourselves. It's something that is like given to us and just poured down on us. And sometimes the harder life gets, the more he pours it on. Some of the hardest times in my life is whenever I've found the most peace and joy just settling upon me because the Lord does that in comfort in our lives. And how many times have we seen testimonies and of martyrs who were being fed to the lions or something, but they're singing hymns and singing praises to God in the process. And I can't imagine, right? I can't imagine, we'd all be scared to death, right? But he just pours those things down on us whenever we really, really need them. And let's see. And yeah, there's a couple of places in Deuteronomy. And then Jeremiah 22:10. Weep ye not for the dead, neither bemoan him, but weep sore for him that goeth away, for he shall return no more, nor see his native country. Does that not kind of remind you of the brothers? My brain just went blank. The brother that went away and spent all of his inheritance, and then he comes back. And David. I love reading the Psalms, especially whenever I'm really down in the dumps, right? Because David went through such bouts of depression. And when Bathsheba's first baby died, David just prayed and prayed and prayed until they came and they told him that the baby had died. Then he got up and he cleaned himself up and he went about his day. And he's like, well, once, he was going to pray while the baby was still alive. But once the baby was gone, there was nothing he could do about it anymore, right? Doesn't mean that he didn't think about it and that he did, but he knew that there was no more that he could do. And when Absalom, I think it was Absalom that died, it was kind of the same thing. He he did weep whenever he died, but he said he wasn't weeping for his death. He was weeping because of the life that he lived before. And when we weep for someone, we weep usually for ourselves because we miss them, right? That's the big thing. But sometimes we weep because we don't know if we're going to see that person whenever we get to heaven. And that's even more sad, right? Um, so anyway, the scriptures are just so good. Just so good. Okay. And then there's the blood as well. So we've got the doing things for the dead. And then there's the blood. Let's see if I can get, come on, mouse, work with me here. And there's so many times in scripture that it says the life is in the blood, right? Genesis 9:4. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Leviticus 17:11. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, right? And Leviticus 17:14. For the life of every creature is its blood. And it just goes on and on and on. And that's one of the things that a lot of these pagan and not just pagan gets kind of put on everything, but these other religions and whatnot, cults and things, is the drinking of blood. And it's like the Bible, God was like, no, this is not good. And unfortunately, this time of the year, that becomes a temptation for people. And as a matter of fact, one of the ways to become a witch, one of the initiation principles, one of the key things that you have to do in the process of becoming a witch is you pick a familiar animal and you have that animal drink your blood. Now, I did that research down in southwestern Oklahoma. I was going to high school down there. No, it was junior high at the time. It was actually junior high. They had a very old library, one of those mud flooders, right? And it was just the coolest library in the world. Had some very, well, in this part of the world anyway, it has some very, very old books. And I have always had a weakness for very old books. And some of the books were on witchcraft, and I was, of course, fascinated. I mean, we had Bewitched, we had I Dream of Jeannie, we had all these things. They have so much more now. All these things that were fascinating to me as a young person in junior high. So I checked out these books on witchcraft, scared my grandmother to pieces. And my mother was just the hippie that she was just like, oh, don't worry about it. She'll figure it out. She knew me well. And I got to reading. I really did. I read through these old books, and they gave you step by step what you're supposed to do and how things work and all this kind of stuff. They had spells in them, the whole kit and caboodle. But yeah, once they got to that point, it creeped me out. I'm like, okay, so I'm supposed to pick out an animal to bond with, and I'm supposed to have it drink my blood. That's gross. And I took those books right back to the library. So yeah, Donita never was. I have been called before, but I've been called many things too. So that's the way that is sometimes. But another thing that we need to be careful about, I don't think anybody here has a taste for human blood or anything, do you guys? I even like my meat very well cooked. So there we are. Yeah, the one place that I really kind of struggled with this is in John 6, where Jesus feeds the 5,000, then he walks on water, and then he says that he's the bread of life. And I know that he was being symbolic here. And I know that Jesus is beyond the flesh, because he's the word. He was their creation. He is, he wasn't, it's not that he was, he is, and has always been, right? And it says in here, they were wanting him to feed them again. And where did I find it? He said, they said unto him, Sir, give us this bread always. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me and yet not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who has sent me. And this is the will of him who has sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up in the last day. This is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in him should have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. What a wonderful promise, right? And the Jews grumbled. Of course, the Pharisees were not happy with that, because he said, I am the bread come down from heaven. And they said, is not this Jesus, son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? And how can he say this, right? And he says, don't grumble among yourselves. No one, unless the Father who sent, no one can come unless the Father who sent me draws him, which that is interesting. And there are places in the Bible where it talks about predestination, and people have had lots of arguments about that. And I've wondered, because there's been a lot of talk about bloodlines and stuff lately, right? And if you guys have been around me very long at all, you know, at this point, the Hebrews were scattered all over. The Israelites were scattered all over, right? And we don't know who they all are. And the people who we call Jews today, most of them are Ashkenazi, out in here anyway, that we know of. They usually take their bloodlines back to the Levites, or just those few tribes that were still left. The rest of us were scattered all over the place. So probably all of us has some Israelite blood in us. I've got Cherokee on both sides of my family. And I totally believe that the Cherokee were probably from the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh. And there's a lot of people who have tried to prove that. And there's a lot of evidence that that very well could be. But then at the same time, I've got some Scandinavian, Irish blood, Welsh as well. So we're talking about the Danites and the Tuatatanen. So I probably, yes, I mean, the Danites and the Tuatatanen are the ones that are not listed in the book of Revelation. Of all the tribes, the Danites were cut off. Why? Because they mixed with the Raphaim. And so that's basically Nephilim blood. So I've probably got that too, right? But somehow or another, with Israelite blood and the Raphaite blood, God called me through that, and I am the only one of each of my parents. So I was their only child together. So is the bloodline somehow or another with that mixture ended up being more Hebrew than the other? And that's why I was called. And if you've got brothers and sisters that from the same parents, then do you have, everybody gets different set of genetics unless you've got an identical twin. Um, Otherwise, everybody's got different sets of genetics that they inherit from their parents, right? So, is that why some people seem to be really called and drawn to the Lord and some people don't, right? I don't think it's that he's picking and choosing between people and saying, oh, this baby's going to be mine, but that baby can go to hell. I don't believe the Lord is doing that at all. I believe it's probably a combination of things, you know. So anyway, that's just kind of a sidetrack that I kind of wondered about, because Jesus is sitting here talking about, you know, the Jews disputed among themselves, and in verse 52, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And I'm sure they probably thought that is as gross as I think it is. So Jesus said to them, truly I say unto you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and he was referring to Enoch, the book of Enoch here, as the Son of Man being the Messiah, and they knew what he was saying, and drink his blood, you have no life in you. What's he talking about here? Because he's telling us not to eat, he doesn't want us to be cannibals, right? But then he's saying that we need to eat his flesh and drink his blood. Well, what was the manna that fell from heaven for the Israelites in the wilderness? Good question, right? It came from heaven. It came from the Lord. And then he's also said that he's the water, he's the living water. And blood's mostly water, right? So I think that's more along the lines of symbolically what he was talking about. So if somebody offers you bread and says that this is turning into flesh in your mouth, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. And if somebody's offering me, of course, I don't do wine. We do grape juice, and I do not believe that it's going to turn into blood. So anyway, whenever we do, communion or whatever, Last Supper, Passover type stuff, that's it's a symbology thing. So anyway, let's see. Oh, yeah, I talked about that one. Go through this stuff. Yeah. And let's see. Ah! Why did you do that? I am having such trouble with my mouse. I don't know if my guests are trying to. No. They may come in later. I'm not used to this thing, so I don't know how it alerts me whenever somebody's trying to come in. Let's see. I want to go ahead and go to this. I'm going to skip this one part. No. If I can pull it in. Somebody was asking, I think it was Hava. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry. Hava Alexander. Weren't you the one that said something about Frankenstein? I pulled up information about Frankenstein. And one of the interesting things that I pulled up, I actually had to pull it up in the archives in the Wayback Machine, because the website that I was trying to look it up in would not load. And I'm like, what on earth is this about? Let's see if I can. Let's see, screen share again, maybe. Just entire screen. because I know it's not what I'm doing. Da-da-da. So, through the Wayback Machine, I pulled up this website, and I think it was like a university website, British Library Trust, from the British Library, but it would not. I had to go all the way back to like a 2021 in order to get it to pop up. And I have no idea what that's about. But this was interesting. Mary Wollstonecraft. I mean, that's quite the name. Godwin. From 1797 to 1851, later Mary Shelley, devised this Gothic novel in 1816 while staying at Lake Geneva. Does that remind you of anything? With Lord Byron, John, I'm not even going to try that, Claire Clermont, and her future husband, Percy Shelley. Byron proposed that the group should write ghost stories. It doesn't say what time of the year it was, but I just wonder, The text was penned at a time when scientists were investigating the possibility of regenerating corpses with electricity. Okay, so this is a time period when scientists are actually discussing this stuff, probably trying. Okay, if they were talking about it, somebody was probably trying, right? Victor Frankenstein's attempts to reanimate a dead body have tragic consequences. Imagine that. But yet people are still trying to do this stuff today. I mean, it's crazy, the stuff people will continue to try to do. Mary Shelley's creature is not innately evil, but becomes malign. Is that what that is? After being rejected by the creator and his creator and society. Over the years, there have been numerous adaptations for theater and film, and the work has achieved iconic status. But I thought that little tidbit was interesting. You've got these people involved in this, Lord Byron and these people. Has things to say about some of these people. She was probably, raised by or around or both Shmishmations. And yeah, and probably I am assuming I am just speculating. I'm going to strongly speculate that there were things like this going on. And I would not be surprised, because of the time period and whatever, that somebody there at Lake Geneva might not have actually been trying to do this at the time, really seriously. Trying to figure out how to use the Antiquitech that they had found and were trying to figure out to do something along these lines. Because we know that the frequencies that run through, like those big cathedrals and stuff, can be very healing frequencies. Those windows, the big, round windows, those are a frequency. So if you run a frequency in a bowl of water, you're going to come up with those pretty designs and stuff. And you get those pretty designs in our snowflakes. We see those designs in all kinds of nature because of the frequencies that are happening. And they were trying, whoever built those Gothic cathedrals, right, knew what was going on. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And we've got a feller. We have this feller down south of us down by Canadian Texas who is into cloning. And he he does he actually took, I remember it to be a 3-day dead cow, but Paul remembers it to be an 8-day dead cow. And he took the DNA from this cow that had been dead for several days and cloned it. And yeah, he was doing experiments like that when the big fires hit out here in 2017. And I have just wondered if maybe something got away from him, and maybe some of our fires, in addition to practice for, maybe fires that have been happening lately, maybe, I mean, I just, maybe, I don't know. I just thought process there. Just wondering. So, of course that brings us to, and it's funny how that brings us around a full circle. That brings around an absolute full circle, because it takes us that was Gothic novels, right? Trying to open up some more stuff here. And Gothic, they've got Gothic architecture, Gothic novels, Gothic art. And where does the Gothic stuff come from? And this is just, it ends up making a full circle. And I was just, this kind of research just never ceases to amaze me. It just never does. Pull this back up again. I don't know if I'll ever get good at this, guys. So Gothic art, we're talking about this kind of stuff. This right here reminds me of some of the temples in India that are carved out of bedrock. Some of the total detail. I mean, because you've got figures up here underneath this. I mean, how on earth did they do that? Can you even tell me? That just that amount of detail. I'm trying to figure out if that is a fish, or I don't know what that is. That looks like those people are carrying some. That looks like somebody in a bucket. Looks like these have been defaced. There was something there somebody didn't want people to see or something. That one's been beheaded. That one's been beheaded. Just, he's missing his hand. I mean, just, isn't that, it just reminds me a lot of, oh, look at that. These little places down in here. Yeah, just the intricate detail that makes you wonder, how was somebody who was supposedly starving to death at that time period going through and carving that kind of stuff? Just a question. Just a question. Oops. And then, of course, we talked about the windows and how intricate the detail. I mean, this is just do that today, right? I mean, that is absolutely amazing. The carving on the wood and the detail in the windows, and it's just amazing stuff. So you've got this, and then other art in the books and things, and that's just like, it looks like she's like got hair all over. So I mean, they're saying it's Mary Magdalene, but I don't know. It looks like a female Bigfoot to me in that one. So I'm probably reading that wrong. And we've got unicorns. This one's got a unicorn and a lion. And we know this is all a lot of symbology. Here you've got the crescent moons. Does that remind you of anything here lately? My husband is always talking about all the flaggage that's always on the older buildings and stuff in those old pictures. You know, how did these people in suits, white dresses, running around in horse and buggies, going on the top of those huge, intricately detailed buildings and putting the flags on everything? And why? You know, just for decoration? I mean, who had time for decoration whenever you were trying to pioneer a countryside? It just, I don't know. Some of the stuff just obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And I know that there's a lot of really talented people in the world. And then these things tell a story. If you go looking at these and you try to figure out what is the story, I mean, giant, anyone? Seriously? And that's kind of a creepy looking creature there. Giant, anyone? What is the story? Lutheran Cathedral. The Man of Sorrows. Huh. So where does this gothic stuff, kind of come from? Well, the Goths were the early Scandinavians, pre-Viking, right? Basically, is what the Goths were. I mean, look at the detail in this. I mean, that is just amazing detail as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. So we're talking early Scandinavian people. And of course, they've got their whole narrative, blah, 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 right? But we've got these early Scandinavian people. And where does that take us? You know, the Germanic peoples. Germania, the Celtic, the Baltic, the Slavics. And that just pulls us to Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, and the Vikings. And where does that take us? It ends up taking us to the Danes, is what it does. It ends up taking us to the Danes and the Tuataranen. North Germanic, Scandinavian, Denmark, the tribe of Dan, the one that is not listed in the book of Revelation. Book of Revelation mentions all of the tribes, but not Dan. It doesn't mention Ephraim, but it mentions Joseph and Manasseh. So here's Manasseh, the whole thing of Manasseh. Here's Ephraim, and here's Dan. And these people ended up all the way up there as the Vikings. I mean, and that's where you start getting the stories of the Tuatha Danann. Yeah, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. I'm butchering it. The tribe of the gods. And that's where the Druids and the Celts come from. So, I mean, does anybody just kind of think some of this Gothic art and architecture? I mean, this right here, and we see this everywhere. I mean, has anybody seen the I mean, some of these cathedrals in the United States, right? I absolutely do not believe that the old empires were just in the world of that time period. I totally believe that they were worldwide, worldwide empires. Just look at that detail. And that's outside. That just is amazing architecture. That kind of stuff might actually make you want to write ghost stories. Seriously. But let's see. Gothic architecture. Okay, that was supposedly the late 12th to the early 16th century. Yeah, 1100 to 1400. So you're talking about a time period that's, I just really don't know if that time period actually existed. Who do you guys think really built this stuff? Who do you think really built some of these things? Because they're naming that cathedral, okay, that, but then let's see if we can look something up here. Salt. Let's look at this. What about this? I mean, maybe it doesn't have quite the intricate detail, but do you think maybe they went in and kind of cleaned it up and refacaded or something whenever they took it over? But you look at all those points and all these little pieces and stuff, and does it not remind you of some of these Gothic cathedrals? I mean, maybe I'm stretching. Maybe I'm stretching. Anyway, I just that's where I'm kind of at. Let's see what you guys are doing. Oh, yes, Shelley. It's interesting that Ephraim isn't mentioned in Revelation, even though Jacob deliberately blessed him before Manasseh, despite him being younger. Yeah, but Joseph is. So, I don't know why it's Joseph and Manasseh instead of Ephraim and Manasseh. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely think the Nephilim have been involved. Oh, really? There's cathedrals. Think about some of this stuff being in Oklahoma. But yeah, and I don't do a lot of traveling. I'm a homebody. But we have places in Oklahoma, and I might see if I can actually pull a few of these up. Shut some more of these. But yeah, let's see if I can find like Guthrie, Oklahoma is one of the, it was supposed to be it was originally going to be the capital of Oklahoma. Guthrie was. And I'm telling you, that town is, it's interesting. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to, oh, no. That's not what I wanted. Dad, blast it. I am really not now. I don't want your AI stuff, guys. No. Images. Yeah, let me pull this up. And it does give you kind of a downtown, a country. I mean, you can kind of feel the, just pull up that one, share. It does give you the feel. Oh, that wasn't the one that I was wanting. Let's see. Stop sharing. Try this again. Ah, my mouse. I don't think it's my mouse. I think it's my computer. Let's just do entire screen because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Okay, look at some of these. Now, imagine Oklahoma was, before it was settled, it was considered, a majority of Oklahoma, not where I grew up, the part that I grew up, but a majority of Oklahoma was considered Indian territory. And they moved as many of the Indian tribes here as possible, except for the ones that did live here. And the Native Americans who did live here, they either tried to eradicate them or they moved them somewhere else. So they tried to move a majority of the Native Americans from the eastern part of the United States out here to Oklahoma. So, and then they decided that they were going to scoochie the Native Americans into smaller areas and they were going to let people come out here and homestead. So they had these land runs and had people, race for a piece of land. And so look at these images here and tell me, if you took the facade off of some of those Gothic cathedrals and you took it down to just the red brick, what would it look like? I mean, is it that hard for your imagination to go there? Or does this just look like an old cowboy town to you? I mean, we've got 3 stories high, 3 stories high, some of these buildings. I mean, so they're not huge, they're not like honking huge buildings, right? I mean, where'd you go? This one. This is what a majority of Oklahoma towns look like. And I think you guys can kind of relate to a lot of this, right? And Oklahoma, well, not all of Oklahoma's flat. Out here, it is chocolates and coffees. I wonder if that one's still open. But we've got mud flooders in Oklahoma. Definitely. We've got cathedrals. I mean, wonder what that one is. Probably one of the schools or something. Well, where'd it go? No, I want that one. Just fighting with it. Open in a new tab. Let's see how big we can get this. I mean, here we go. Was this just a bunch of cowboys and Native Americans driving their little wagons like this, wanting to make it look like a castle? I mean, why would they even want to make it look like a castle? And I wonder what year this is. I mean, look at these lines. It just kind of, I don't know, people. I don't know. There's something interesting in the background there on that one. And what these buildings end up usually being here in Oklahoma is, yes, there are some that are churches. I wonder what that building is. Oh, it must be that one. there are some pretty snazzy churches. I mean, the Catholic churches, the Lutheran churches, the older churches, and oh yeah, here we go, guys. The Scottish Rite Temple in Guthrie. Isn't that? I mean, you've got the three doors here that obviously could be much larger than what. I just don't even know if I want to know what the story behind this is. You know, because the narrative is going to be, but I just think for the most part they came out here, and either Oklahoma had already been so devastated that a lot of the details and stuff weren't on the buildings anymore that they found, or something. You know what I'm saying? I maybe I'm stretching here, right? Maybe I'm stretching. There's a middle school in our old school district that look very similar. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that we've got anything different here, and that's kind of my point. We don't have anything different here. We've got the same stuff. Plus, Oklahoma, how many people know this? I know Shelly does because I've talked to her, but Oklahoma has Viking runes in Oklahoma. Okay, we've got Viking runes carved into a cave area in eastern Oklahoma. Seriously. And of course, they've tried to debunk it and all of that good stuff. Oklahoma has one of the highest instances of Bigfoot sightings. And definitely talking to the old cowboys and stuff around here, UFO sightings. Yeah, there was worldwide. I think there was more than one worldwide civilization. I'm trying. I'm in the process of a bunch of research right now, so I get sidetracked really easy. It happens. I mean, y'all need to pray for me that I can stay on track. Oh, Shelly, you are more than welcome. We have a place for you. Come to Oklahoma. We would love to have you. You would fit right in with our family. Your family and our family, we would have a blast. But yeah, I think whenever the Bible said the world, I think the Bible meant the world. I think it meant the whole plane, the whole plane. So when, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, I go back to that, but I think we even need to go back before that too. But Nebuchadnezzar's dream held that the golden age was Babylon. The silver age was the Medes and the Persians, right? And then the bronze age was the Greeks, right? I'm trying to remember. It's getting late. And then you have the Romans, the Iron Age, right? So, I mean, I think there's a reason that each of those ages were in the way that they were in the image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And I do believe that each one of those was a worldwide civilization. Now, it's hard to go back since our history is so messed up. It's hard to go back and say, okay, which one of these architectural design types belonged to which one of those civilizations? Well, what architectural design has the most gold in it? Because you've got the Babylonians, right? So which one has the most gold? And we've got like the dome structures in several different places, right? In Russia and different places. And a lot of those. So was that the Babylonian architecture? and it would kind of make sense. But then the dome type thing seems more like a Persian thing to me. So I don't know. And that would be bronze, right? And a lot of those domes are copper domes on top of them. So that would make sense that they're in maybe the Persian time period, right? So maybe the gold is from some of the cathedrals and stuff that had the gold, like inlaid in gold on the inside. And so, I mean, we know that a majority of the pyramids, Sacsayhuaman, the places down in Peru, stuff like that, that those were probably pre-flood. Even the archaeologists say they are antediluvian, which means pre-flood, pre-deluge, right? So we know that they were before the flood. And the Great Pyramid looks like it's had water all the way up to the top, right? It's missing the facade, the covering on it. And it looks like that a flood has happened there, right? So we know what the antediluvian stuff is. And then we're finding that America has a lot of Egyptian stuff. And Catherine, our oldest daughter, and Stephen from the Okie Dokie Explorers has been Okie Dokie exploring around. And they've been getting a lot of pictures of, natural formations out here in the West, that a lot of those do look very Egyptian. And then there's the stories of the Egyptian stuff in the Grand Canyon that are really coming out now. And so I do believe that the Egyptian empire was probably a worldwide empire. So we had, the Egyptian empire. So we should expect to see Egyptian type things all over, not just the pyramid. We think of the pyramids as Egyptian, but I don't think the pyramids are Egyptian. The Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. I don't believe that. That's antediluvian. That is, and I'm probably not saying that right because my Oklahoma tongue goes, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, the pyramids, those are Nephilim buildings. Those, and I do think that they were probably, there's no way, shape, or form they were tombs. I mean, I just kind of think that is totally ridiculous. And especially there's a pyramid down in Mexico that underneath it is a whole bunch of mercury. And there's just, these were chemical plants, they were power plants, they were, things like that. Oh, thank you so much for coming, Ring Girl. I'm so glad that you came. Yeah, I'm going to keep on for another 30 minutes, and I told everybody I would do like 6:30 to 8:30, so I'm just babbling now. But good night. But yeah, the pyramids, the Egyptians didn't do the pyramids. That is a completely different structure. And I think a lot of the bigger things may have even been, pre-flood stuff too. It's hard for me to try to figure out what belongs where, because we've been taught so wrong about things. And when we actually look at the evidence and we see that this stuff is all over the world, it's everywhere. And it wasn't just people copying each other. Oh, I want to build, why would you want to do that? I'm just sitting here, I like Victorian houses, okay? The old Victorian type houses. I think they're really neat. But I would not want to build one myself. They don't make sense in my lifestyle because they had a whole bunch of little bitty rooms, and the heating and air conditioning for something like that doesn't make sense for my area, right? So why would you build something like that, which was built for a completely different atmosphere, a completely different weather, a completely different environment, right? So pre-flood stuff was built for the pre-flood environment, which I think was very different. I mean, there were like the giant trees that are mountains now and stuff like that. It was very different. You want to talk about, greenhouse type thing, that had to have been it, right? The atmosphere had to have been very, very thick, and for those giant trees and giant people and, giant bugs and the giant everything stuff. But I don't think that just, I think there was a big change during the flood, but I don't think it was that drastic of a change that Noah and his family were able to live after. Had you taken Noah and his family from pre-flood days and put them in our atmosphere today, I don't know that they could have survived. I think it would have been hard for them to survive in our atmosphere today. So I think it's just degraded that much. So I think it was a little bit more of a gradual. There was a big thing that happened, obviously, right? But their atmosphere and stuff wasn't that much different. And then you had the days of Peleg and the Tower of Babel. And something happened there and the earth was divided, right? And I think there was something physical that happened in addition to the language changing. So, every time the weather changes, I have trouble thinking. My joints hurt and stuff. I know when there's like a high or a low system coming through, right? Don't you imagine that at these time periods when there was like a major climate shift in things, that it would have caused some confusion and things like that as well. I mean, God tends to use natural things to guide and direct people, whether they like it or not, So anyway, yeah, that's kind of my thought process in there, is that I think we need to think about where these different architectural styles and different things actually fit into the world that the Bible lays out in the time periods that the Bible gives us. And we need to be thinking about those kingdoms and those empires as being actual worldwide kingdoms and empires. And I know Tartaria has something to do with it, and it fits in there somewhere. And it makes sense because of the maps and stuff that it fits in after Jesus was here. But I don't know exactly how that fits. My hunky hubby called. It was his lunch break. I'm back now. Well, welcome back, Samantha. Yeah, I my hunky husband too. I understand. Oh, but yeah, I mean, I would like, we need to. John Levi has got a new website, and I haven't got to visit yet, but where people can upload pictures and stuff and put in there. And I think it would be neat if a bunch of us could try to categorize the architectural things and try to decide where they fit. Because, we've been told in our lives that everybody wore robes and sandals for thousands of years, until all of the sudden, in the 1500s, after the Dark Ages, all of the sudden everybody figured out buttons and buckles. Thousands and thousands of years, people just wore robes and sandals. And all of the sudden, buttons and buckles. I don't think that's the case. I keep thinking of the intricate artwork of the Asian lands and all the dragons and all the immense volume of statues and architecture and all the snakes and the nagas of India. I know, isn't that right? I mean, and the time that it would take to do those carvings and that art and stuff. And, I'm artistic and I do artistic things, but I don't have the time to do something so artistic that it's going to last thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? Much less the, the money to purchase the right products, like a big hunk of marble. Where am I going to get that? And then to sit there and carve on that marble and make some beautiful thing. I might in my lifetime get, if I was able to spend all of my time and energy on that and had people supporting me and sponsoring me, I might be able to whip out a few. I mean, look at what is attributed to Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, right? And I question the whole Michelangelo narrative in the first place. But, they can only attribute so many things to those people before it's not believable anymore, right? And you're saying that, or they're trying to tell us that they're, an architect and people in a usually a very small community when these places were built. And my hunky husband likes to say, the monks did it. He's been saying this for years. We've been talking before we even realized that there was like a whole community talking about like Tatarian stuff and things. And the Antiquitech, as Martin puts it, I Martin's a pill, but that's pretty ingenious, the Antiquitech. But my hunky husband and I'm going to steal that. I am totally stealing that now, Samantha. We talk about this place down in South America that is one of those cathedrals. Okay. And I can't remember where it is. And I should have had that pulled up. I didn't even think about it. But it's one of those fancy cathedrals, but it is built on the side of a cliff. On the side of a cliff with this very intricate, huge bridge going from one chasm to the side of the cliff. And I'm just sitting here, huh? And supposedly it was just a bunch of naked savages killing each other over here in South America, supposedly. And the monks and the conquistadors come over here, and you're going to tell me that the monks built it. It's just, when you really think about it, it's laughable. It's ridiculous. Well, your husband is more important to me or more important than me. You guys need to stop and talk to your husband. I totally understand. Me getting on here and babbling for 2 whole hours. I like this, that I can see what you guys are saying and that you can, because whenever I get on here and I do a video, and I like the Tin Hat Talks because having Shelly and the other ladies on here to visit with me, is a lot more engaging than me just talking to the screen and hoping that somebody's going to care about what I have to say. So having you guys in the chat and the live stream has just been really, really nice. This is cool. I'm so glad you guys came. It really means a lot to me. You guys are a sweet, sweet community. You have always got really nice comments and stuff, and I really appreciate that. But I need you guys, what I need is to get you guys to start emailing me pictures of things in your area so that I can start putting some of that up and emailing me some of you guys' ideas too. Of course, you can find me on Facebook and message me there too and stuff. But um, because I would love to see what some of y'all have got. We've been going around to the churches in our area and taking pictures of the Masonic cornerstones at the churches around here. And whenever I post about that on like Instagram or something, I notoriously have somebody that's irritated at me. And their church does not have that. And I hope not. But I bet if I walked around their church, I bet I could find it, you know, because it's not always connected to the church. Sometimes it's a little stone that's kind of off in a flower bed, kind of tucked away somewhere or something, but they're usually there. It just, I wonder in the 1800s how they doled it all out whenever people were coming out here and settling. And if you can rearrange your thinking and realize that these buildings and things were already here, a lot of this stuff was already here. So, like out here in our area, there were these big, what are the big brick structures that were several stories high. They became either a county seat, the county courthouse, or a school, usually. And if there was something fancier than that, it became a church, right? So it just makes you wonder what they actually, and Paul, he was one of the first people in the area to have, like video recording stuff and things. My hunky husband. And he was able to do interviews with some of the old timers that actually came out here in the covered wagons and settled out in this area. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wonder if there was some understanding that they had to have in order to come out here and settle this land out here. If they had to like sign a non-disclosure agreement or something saying that they weren't going to discuss what they found, you know what I'm saying? Or how that went. Because you will get little flavors, little bits of stories of things out here. But to actually be able to take it and put it together and get the whole story, it really makes me wonder. It really makes me wonder. And, you kind of think that somebody would have written it down. Somebody would have kept some kind of record, but it'd probably be tucked away in a Shmishmishin temple or something like that, right? Probably not available for us. I mean, when something really neat is found out here, it usually the guys out here will keep it really quiet and don't want to tell anybody. But if one of the universities catches wind of it, it will not take very long before it either completely disappears or it's destroyed. Yeah. And it's sad because a friend of ours found a mammoth, a complete mammoth on his property in Oklahoma, and yep, university came, totally destroyed it. So very, very, very frustrating. Very frustrating. Oh, goodness. Well, I think there's only 3 of you left. I think we're all about to give up. And I was going to try to make it to 8:30, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm getting really dry and I'm tired. And I've got a beauty shop appointment tomorrow. So it's been over a year since I've gone in for professional assistant. So that's interesting. Down in Texas. Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've got a lot of that kind of stuff out here. Mammoth. Yeah, mammoth. Yeah. Well, down in Glen Rose, Texas, is where they've got the human footprints and the dinosaur footprints together, right? So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys go. Um, I my typer's tired. My talker's tired too, so I totally understand. Oh, thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciated it. And yep, I'm gonna let it go and make sure to share this out to anybody who you think might be interested in some of this stuff. Um, I would really, really appreciate that if we could kind of grow the channel. It would be nice. So anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much for coming. We will talk to y'all again later. And remember, you can make it through the dust storms of life with God's divine help.